The Codpast.
Hello and welcome to The Codpast. I'm your host Sean Douglas, and this is the place where you'll hear right brain stories from interesting individuals. Today's guest is a self-confessed maverick, disturber and visionary. He was once creative director and member of the board at ad agency Saatchi & Saatchi, and recently posted a controversial recruitment poster that some said unfairly discriminated against non-dyslexics. Today's guest is creative partner at ad and marketing agency Creative Orchestra and The Garage, Chris Arnold. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
So, we talked about this recruitment poster in the intro. It featured a black and white headshot of Apple founder Steve Jobs, and it had the copy, "We require people with unique minds, so only dyslexics like Steve Jobs should apply." A lot of people didn't quite like this, did they?
Yes, we got a bit of a backlash from a few people, but I think the interesting thing was it sparked a bigger conversation, which is about the fact that people started to realise that far from dyslexia, which has often been classified as a sort of disability, that it's one of those abling conditions as well. People like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Richard Branson are actually dyslexic. And I think the key thing in their dyslexia is that they got there because they think differently, but also because they actually struggled. And I think this is the key thing. If you look at any kid who has to struggle in school, they'll tend to be successful later on because they're fighters. You combine that with thinking differently and you become an innovative business person.
You put that advert out, it was around a year ago. Did you recruit the people that you wanted from the ad?
Yes, we did anyway. We've got a mailer going out soon, and we've got one card that goes in it that says you don't have to be dyslexic to work here, but it sure helps. And it is embracing that dyslexic game with Steve Jobs, that association between great thinkers and think different and be proud, and not be scared to think different.
Yeah. And do you think this is something every company should do?
Yes, I think everybody needs a think different person, whether that is a dyslexic or it's just someone else. I'm not saying that we, the dyslexics, own the territory of thinking different, but I do think that that's a skill set that's easy to identify.
And you talked about having one divergent thinker in every board.
Yes.
But if you look at the numbers, 1 in 10 of people are dyslexic, which means 10% of the population, which probably means 10% of boardrooms are already dyslexic.
You'd hope.
You'd hope. Do you think it's just a case of not utilising that?
Yeah, I think it's. I sat on boards where, quite frankly, I've been hushed up the whole time. And I can remember one of the common things on Saatchi's was, please don't write down what Chris just said. I'm not joking. A number of times the MD said that in a meeting because I would make a wild, crazy suggestion and going, can you not record that? I was like, why not? The problem is that too many companies get complacent and safe and formulaic and they do things in a regular way. You need someone to come in and say, guys, wake up. Yeah, guys, why are we doing it that way? Well, we can't just do it because we want to keep people happy like that. And I think companies become very PC, very formulated. If you look at, say, the top 500 Fortune companies, in the last 15 years, 52% of them don't exist. Literally 15 years ago, those top businesses thriving, doing really well, are gone. In the last 10 years, more established businesses have gone under than at any other time in history, including the world's oldest company, which is 1,400 years old, a Japanese house builder. So, the world has changed very quickly, so success can turn to failure. So companies now, more than ever, can't just fall back on old-fashioned thinking. They can't just say, okay, we can ride the storm. You can't ride the storm anymore. You sink. The first time the wave hits you, you go under. So now companies have to be more diverse, more creative, more innovative. So where are they getting that innovation from? Where are they turning to? Well, they're not going to get it from accountants, that's for sure. They're not going to get it from their lawyers. There's this potential enormous growth area for innovation to really help businesses be more innovative, more entrepreneurial.
There's a big need for it, but we're in trouble to a certain extent. there's a couple of studies that say the way we're taught, as we get older, we have less capacity to be divergent thinkers. There's one, they measured some 3 to 5 year olds. 98% of them were able to think divergently. As they measured the same amount of people at the ages of 10 to 15, that had gone down to 10%, and at the age of 25, it had gone to 2%.
That's right, yeah. There's a study in America where, looking at the loss of creativity, it goes from something like 72% to 2%. Interesting enough, though, a lot of that actually is mainly audiences that have not gone through the creative channels. So they tend to be like, the thing is, they go to school, they get their exams, they go to college, they then go get a job in a bank. And a lot of that study looks at those kind of people. It's interesting because, like anything with creativity, if you take the kids through the creative areas, then they tend to keep exercising their creative brain. And that, of course, then gives creative people a greater advantage, because if the average Joe out there has only got 2% creativity and I've got 22%, which I hope I've got more, I've got a massive advantage. And I keep saying to young creators, and I say, look, if you're a creative and you keep that creativity up and keep practicing it, It's like, being a runner and everyone else can only walk and you can run. You've got something they need. And creativity is something everybody needs. One of the issues I do have in schools, which does annoy me, is, oh, Johnny, he's too stupid to do anything else, I'll put him in creative arts. Firstly, that's patronising. But just to think that you can dump him in arts because that must be where you can put him is wrong. I worked in Seacole Centre, which is a school for kids, most of them had Asperger's, and they were written off by the system. In fact, the Seacole was the only school that didn't have to follow the curriculum because the kids couldn't do it. And I suddenly realised that the problem is the system doesn't play to people's talent. It says either you fix this box or you're right off. And this is my biggest problem with the education system is we've got to stop looking at if you don't fit in the box, you're no bloody good. No, your skills are other areas. It may be in sport. It may be in creativity. It may be in something you haven't even invented yet. If you look at some people who've got some conditions, their ability in programming is amazing. Yeah. Autistic people have skills where they're recruited now for things like programming because nobody else has that brain power in mathematics to do programming that they can do. They can do it falling off a log. Yeah. We're discovering that people we wrote off and put in homes are now suddenly one of the most sought after and overpaid people on the planet. Why? Because programming is important now. And comes IBM and big companies like Google will pay big money to get an autistic person in who can do something that nobody else can do. So suddenly it's like the age of the superhuman. We took disability and we looked at it through Olympics and said, to achieve that with one leg or no legs is greater. Okay, well, I think we're seeing the same kind of change in mind frame. We've always said, if you're not an ordinary boxy thinker, then there's something wrong with you. Now we're realizing these are superhumans as well. Yeah. So I think we're seeing a change in social attitude towards how people think and that people do think differently. They have skills in other ways. And that's what we need to do. We need to get back to a system that embraces people's true skills and gives them an opportunity and a platform to develop them, and not necessarily try and make them all into office workers.
And you were kind of creative director of one of the most celebrated creative companies, but your kind of brand of maverickness and disruptivity didn't quite go down too well with them.
No, some of my ideas were seen as a bit too controversial. I think what I discovered was that even though Sergeant Sarge had this fantastic reputation for creativity, the reality is inside it really was a bit like a bank. And some of my ideas were considered a little bit too radical for the place. And my failure to follow the system as well got us in a lot of trouble. And I think it struck me, even when we had board meetings, it's like, I said, we're working in such an old-fashioned way here. We're working in a really, like a Victorian mentality. We need to change the way we work. We need to change the way we do things. So when I eventually left, I started Feel, which is one of the first ethical marketing agencies. But even then, we decided to change the way we do briefings. We changed the way we do things. So we just did everything differently. And then we merged with another company, Form Black. And that became very ordinary. To be honest, after 3 years of doing it the old school way, I didn't want to do it anymore. So we split again. And then we actually started Creative Orchestra with the idea of being an orchestra of creative thinkers, which is what we started out as. We started out with 20-odd kids from college, from every course you can imagine. Great fun, utter chaos. And we went to clients and said, look, we've got this big pool of creative talent. We'd like to do some thinking for you, and it did work a bit at the beginning. And we picked up very quickly Diageo, IKEA, and it was just really interesting times. But very quickly, you also discovered the system doesn't really want wild, crazy thinkers. What they want is people who can just take something and push it a bit. However, a lot has changed since we launched just under 10 years ago. Now the market is needing much more dramatic thinking. And that's why I thought it was a great time to launch our subsidiary, The Garage, and embrace the dyslexia and be totally open about it. Before, I would probably not mention it. Now I'm openly saying, I'm dyslexic and I'm proud. And I think, to make this thing about being proud to be dyslexic, I think the fact that people like Steve Jobs and now that Richard Branson are recognized, and, even Bill Gates, people didn't realize he was dyslexic, and people like James Dyson. People are going, well, actually, there's some pretty top people here. So what have they got that we haven't? And they would all want, when you ask them, would you like one of those people to come to your business, that all go, yes. Well, we got people like that. So I think now is the time when we can really actually push creativity much further. And okay, I'm pushing dyslexia and creativity, but I'm also pushing creativity in general. I'm a great believer that we need to respect creativity more and not treat it as some kind of second-class subject.
And out of a lot of our guests, you talk very positively about dyslexia. Did it and does it still cause you any problems?
Oh yeah, it's an inconvenience in many ways. It takes me twice as long to write things. I write 10,000 words a week. It is a painful process, going back and retyping it all. Thank goodness for spell checker and a new program I found called Grammarly, which is really brilliant at correcting things. But still, I sometimes read back on a paragraph going, even I can't understand it. I mean, in other cases, it's the memory issue. Dyslexics notoriously have lousy memories. I'm not very good on faces, not very good on names, and just, I can work with somebody for 2 years and a year later go, who was that person?
Has it caused you some real pain though? Because I mean, the spelling and the memory are inconvenient, as you said, but the kind of emotional, if you haven't found your niche, can be quite tough.
Well, I think it's interesting. You put a creative person in a creative environment like an ad agency and you celebrate them. You put them in a bank and you hate them. You know, the simple is you don't want to go into a profession where you don't have the skills. That's not just about being dyslexic. I mean, we live in an age where we try and encourage kids to think you can do anything and achieve anything. That's rubbish. I'm never going to be the world's best break dancer. I'm never going to be the world's best singer. And I'm never going to be the world's best trampoliner, because I simply don't have it. And it's the same, I think, with dyslexia. You have a certain gift. Find the areas where that works best. Don't go and work in a bank. Yeah. Don't become an accountant, seriously. And I think what has been interesting as a creative is there's a lot of creators just immerse themselves in creativity and that's it. But there's others of us who immerse ourselves in the business of creativity and also understanding business from a creative point of view, which is where we set up the garage, was very much to say, well, let's take the creativity out of that kind of more arty area of advertising and move it into how can you apply that thinking to business level, which I don't see a lot of. I mean, you go to management consultants, but they're notoriously boring people. And they notoriously come from a financial background, so they don't have that creativity. And also because nobody creative would want to work in a management consultancy. PCW is very boring. Whereas you've got these kind of innovation consultants, but again, they seem to be quite staid and old-fashioned. We just thought there's nobody in the market who's bringing that kind of Steve Jobs thinking, and nobody who's also channeling some of that power of dyslexic thinking. And when we did the ad, we had, like I say, a lot of senior people from people like Sony, Premier Foods, IKEA, people from these companies came to us and said, look, I'm dyslexic, I've got through. I never told them I was, but it's good to know somebody out there is giving it respectability in business world. And my mission really of the next year is I want to make the name of dyslexia highly respected on boardrooms. I want C-suite people to going, is there anybody in this place who's dyslexic? Because maybe I can get an intelligent, smart, clever way of looking at the problem.
I mean, how do you do things differently then from another creative agency or a management consultant? How do you position yourself in the middle?
I mean, there's a couple of things really. I mean, where we're different from management consultants is we're hugely more consumer-centric. And I think one of the things about dyslexia, it lets you have a slightly more empathetic understanding of human beings, that's for sure. I think because we sit between this great understanding of how consumers think, but we have this massively good understanding of consumers. At the same time, we're able to apply our creativity to almost any problem. We aren't just about being arty with a TV commercial. It's that ability to look at a business problem. And sometimes what we found where people come to us thinking that advertising was a solution to their business problem. And we said, no, you don't, you're not seeing the problem. What you need to do is to relook at the problem. And by relooking at the problem, we found new solutions. So I think our ability to see things differently. And I always say it's like a dice. You can see the first three faces very easily if I hold it up, but there's another three, but you just can't see it. I think our ability is to be able to see all six. So we bring that kind of combination of creativity with business savviness and consumer understanding. What a lot of companies think it's all about digital or technology. It isn't. 90% of the solution to most businesses going forward does not lie in that field. It lies in actually understanding consumers.
I mean, can you give us a case study of how you've done things differently?
Well, it's interesting because, King of Shaves came to us a while ago and they had a female range of shaving products. They made it pink and lilac because that's what they thought women like, which they don't. And the biggest danger for any brand is to be delisted. The supermarkets to say, we'll take you off the shelves. That can kill your business. The danger is that can then also mean your other products get delisted. They were very worried about it. They came to us and said, we want to do an ad campaign. We said, wrong. Your problem isn't an ad campaign. Your problem is the product is fundamentally wrong. It doesn't appeal to women for a start. So we forced them into this corner of really saying, look, let us relook at the product. So we relooked at the product. We put an entirely female team on it. We looked at it in many different ways. We looked at it first, we said, well, what is it all about? Most shaving gel is sold as a functional thing. I'm going to shave, I need something to lubricate my face. And it's the same with female. We said, no, let's look at the process of how a woman goes through a night. So she starts off with the functional stuff, which is bathing and cleaning, and that's probably where she uses the shaving gel. She then goes to the stages of beautification till finally she leaves the house with her friends looking fantastic. We said, well, let's take that association between shaving away from the functionality and associate it with the going out at night. In other words, from functional to fun. And we moved that position, and by changing it to that, we made the product a lot more fun and lively. We tested 20 different concepts, put it down to 5, tested those, and finally came out with something that scored off the charts. When we relaunched that product, they canned all the advertising and marketing because outsold supply, literally outsold supply. The supermarkets couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, this product they were about to get rid of was now selling faster than any other product on the shelf. And so it was taking a fresher look at things. It's looking at stepping back almost. What we did, we'd step back with no agenda and go, let's just go back a couple of steps and come back at it and get a broader view. And that's something I think dyslexics are very good at. I think they're very good at stepping back and seeing almost in 3D. People often say we think in a 3D spatial way. We're able to connect the dots in unusual ways. So I think that's one of our abilities, is to really see things differently.
It's fascinating what you've got to say. And I just wonder where people can see your ads or see the work that you've been doing.
Well, I mean, as we're progressing along, I mean, if you go on the Garage website, which is co-garage.com, we've got some case studies and examples. And, we're constantly sort of going to be posting those up and new examples. I mean, the problem we do have in our business is a lot of what we do is we have to sign confidentiality agreements. I could show you some amazing stuff if I was allowed to, but quite often when you're developing new conceptual thinking for businesses, they treat it very secretly. So you get to sign massive NDAs all the time, and it's very frustrating because you want to tell people the exciting things you're doing, and you can't. But at the same time, we do a lot of proactive work. For example, for IKEA, we said, one of your biggest is that you're one of the biggest producers of cardboard boxes in the country, and a lot of those cardboard boxes could be recycled, but they often not. People take them out. They take out a bookshelf, they stick it out in the garden or something. It gets soaking wet. Once it's wet, you can't recycle it. So most of it's going in landfill. So we said there's two ways you can do this. Either you can have big recycling bins and expect people to bring them back, which they don't, or because people just want to get rid of it then. Or maybe you could find a way of using the cardboard in an innovative way. So we created this concept called upcycle, where you take the box. So once you've opened your bookcase, your box has got templates printed on it, and you cut the templates out and you can make storage boxes to put in your bookcase. Now you've just used up 70% of your cardboard. You've used it productively. You've given it a second life. I'm a great believer in second life designing. And then only a little bit of it goes in the bin. So it's about, I think, really helping educate businesses as well in the garages about how you can embrace your internal creativity. There's a guy in every company, there's a guy sitting there behind a desk who's got lots of ideas. Now, we were in an insurance company recently, and they were talking about a competitor that set up that was quite creative business. They said, I can't remember the name, but Larry, whatever. So, Larry used to work for us. He now works there. So, I don't think they're going to come to much. I mean, Larry never did anything here. I said, oh, really? Well, why is that? I said, it's always blue sky ideas, but never actually did anything. Did you actually embrace any of his blue sky ideas? Well, no, because that's not what we do. He said he realised there was an insurance company, a very old school way of working. Poor Larry's got brilliant ideas, but nobody's listening to him. There's no platform for him to take those ideas forward. So what did he do? He got up and left and went to the new startup business, which is highly innovative, and love every idea he's got. And I bet you that new business will kick the arse of the old one. And then in a year's time, the old one will be going, what happened? Let's hire some consultants. So, I think, if people embrace that kind of, that divergent thinker, that creative thinker, that maverick, that person who has got the crazy ideas occasionally, let them have a say, give them an opportunity. Branson does that. Someone comes in with a crazy idea, okay, go away, go make it happen, see if it works. Let's invest in ideas. Let's explore. Let's have in companies, they should have the opportunities. Okay, maybe call it the playpen, but we'll try 5 crazy ideas a year. I'd like every CEO to say, you should be at least 1 to 5 crazy ideas. Put a bit of money behind it. What's it going to do to your company? You can write it all off as tax. One of those ideas might come your next success. That's what happened with Nokia. Nokia came out of that concept. The company, I think it was they were a tractor company in Norway or something. And every year they'd invest in 5 different new business ideas, and the mobile phone was one of them. And it became massive. A few companies have started that way. I mean, if you look at BuzzFeed, it was an experiment by Huffington Post. And now look at it, and it's got more readers than Huffington Post. So you've got to explore and be experimental and take a few risks. Which for us dyslexics is second nature.
Brilliant. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
The Codpast is an audio production from extraordinaire.tv.
And that was this month's episode of the Codpast. If you'd like more of the same, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher or SoundCloud to be notified when new shows are uploaded. And to see images and behind the scenes from this episode of the Codpast, check out the show page on our website, which you can find at thecodpast.org. Now, talking about the Codpast.org, we have some really exciting news. We have a brand new website which we are sure will blow you away. If you haven't been to our website for a while, now is the time to take a second look. There's a new video page, there's the dyslexia directory, there's competitions, we've got a new shop. It is a pretty cool site, even if I do say so myself. So take a look around, let us know what you think. All your feedback is much appreciated. So the Codpast, as in the podcast, the videos, the articles, the new website, this is all still mainly a self-funded project. And if any of our content has made a positive impact in your life, we'd like to ask if you can help us support keeping the Codpast going. So you can do this in a couple of ways. One, help us raise awareness of the Codpast by leaving us 5-star reviews on iTunes, sharing us on social media, and telling anyone that you think would benefit from our content that we exist and how to get hold of all our articles, videos and podcasts. Alternatively, to help us keep the Codpast going, you could make a one-off or monthly donation via our website. No matter how small, all donations are very much appreciated. But no matter what you do, make sure you check out our new site because we think you're going to love it. But until next time, enlighten your right brain at thecodpast.org.
Gotta take it on my